Pageant retells the story of Christmas in new and often spontaneous ways. I don't know if anybody else saw that baby Jesus crawling around. It's a reminder you'll never know where Jesus is going to go. He's everywhere, especially tonight. I love how ordinary people get to act out the roles as they find themselves in the story. I love how we as a congregation watch as though we were witnessing the story unfold before us. And I love how we get to find ourselves in the story and are invited to join Mary as we treasure all these words and ponder them in our hearts. And I especially love it when children and youth are the actors. I love it because children's wonder, playfulness, and faith can help us all emotionally enter the scene. We almost need to enter the story as a child to receive the full import. After all, God came to us not as a full-grown adult, but as a baby, as a child. A child's playfulness invites our playfulness. Their wonder invites our wonder. Their childlike faith helps us get closer to that childlike faith that Jesus is always talking to his disciples about in the Gospels. And I love it when pageants have walk-ons, when newcomers arrived and are immediately invited to jump in and participate, an invitation that reenacts the invitation of the Christmas story itself, when newcomers and seasoned members are invited to be part of the story alike. And it's incredible to think about how long the church has been doing the Christmas pageant. When you think back, the Christian tradition has been performing it for over 800 years, having its roots in medieval mystery plays that retold the life of Christ. The first pageant is believed to be performed in 1223, put on by St. Francis as the first director. And it's fun to think about how this tradition has evolved through the centuries and how it's spread throughout the world. It's fun to think about churches contextualizing the stories as they weaved in their own cultural expressions, from different animals to fabrics used in costumes. And I wonder, what were those conversations like when the adults passed the baton from the adult actors to the children and youth actors? I wonder which barn animals they thought were wilder. The live barn animals borrowed from a local farm, or my favorite, children dressed as sheep, cows, and the like. I got a taste of what it was like to change up the pageant early on in my ministry when I was a director of Christian formation. The interim rector wanted to put on what she called a brown bag Christmas pageant. That's right, you heard that, a brown bag Christmas pageant. And rather than casting characters and practicing ahead of time, she wanted to randomly have folks show up and be assigned a role with no practice. And rather than having children act out the roles like we just had here today, she wanted to include all ages, adults and children alike. The first answer out of my mouth was, "No way." And her response to me was, "Well, it'll be fun. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens." So on the fourth Sunday of Advent, we invited everyone to go to the church's parish hall. And in the middle of the empty gym, we placed about 20 brown bags, 20 grocery bags, and each had a costume in it with stapled clothes and had the label of the character on the front. And because adults were involved, we warned them that the costumes would likely be too small because they were child size, but to do their best. All ages, children, youth, parents, grandparents, picked up brown grocery bags and formed a circle. And when the narrator called out the character, they were to put on their costume really quick, leap on the stage, and pantomime their lines as they heard it read aloud. And as it happened, a big burly man picked up the role of Mary. And a sweet little girl picked up the role of Gabriel. To see the sweet little girl address the big burly man, "Hello, favored one, fear not. God has chosen you to bear the Son of the world, of God of the world." And Mary's response, "How can this be, since I'm a young woman?" in his best high voice, was, well, priceless. And it was not only priceless, it also made the point. Everyone is invited to join the cast of the Christmas story. Whether you're a big burly man or a sweet little girl or somewhere in between, you're invited. Whether you're a wise elder or a passionate young person, we are invited to find ourselves in the story as we collectively act it out in our everyday lives. We are all invited to be like Gabriel, reminding others to fear not. God is with us. Emmanuel. We're all invited to be like Mary, who said yes to God despite legitimate fears about the future, anxieties over the unknown, and bear the hope of Christ in our own day. And we're all invited to be like what was then those teenage angels. That's who picked up the angel costumes that day, who, like only teenage angels could, reminded their parent shepherds, "Do not be afraid. We're bringing you good news of great joy for all people." A message, even when expressed differently than their parents, was a shared one, and one that everyone needed to hear. And we're all invited to receive the promise that those adult innkeepers offered. Despite saying there was no room in the inn, the hope of the world was born anyway. A timely message for us adult shepherds who may feel like, because of the hectic demands of our lives or the heaviness of life sometimes, the darkness that's all around, that there's no room, no time in our inn. But as James Finley reminds us all, that God will continue to come and be born among us anyway. It's hard not to love the Christmas pageant. However the Christmas pageant is performed, the invitation is the same. We are all invited to find ourselves and to be found by the story of Christmas. This may mean getting lost in the Christmas story to find our way, just as the song from Moana 2, Get Lost, said, to expand your mind to see. We first need to put our trust in me, who is our God, to see this new way of life. And finally, we're invited to receive the gift of Christmas for ourselves. We're invited to gather around the manger and behold the King of Glory who comes to us as a baby. We're invited to lower the bearers of our hearts and behold this newborn King for ourselves. And what is this gift of Christmas, this newborn King, but God's love for you, laid bare on the altar of the world? For in the end, that's what Christmas is all about. It's all about a God whose love came down from heaven just for you, who, regardless of what we've done, where we've been, whether we made the naughty or nice list, God will come for us anyway, to show us God's love and to show us the way back home to God's very heart. And God does this through a baby. God does this inviting us to God's love through a baby, so that there will be no more barriers, as St. Paul once said, so that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor demons, neither present or the future, nor any powers can ever separate us from the love of God. So tonight, let us receive again this gift of love given for you and for me. Even if our first answer is no way, there's no room in the inn, this world is too hard to receive this message of hope right now, consider the words from my interim rector, who invited me to say yes and to see how the story can come alive right here and right now. For God is always being born among us, if only we have eyes to see.